This spring, I am honored to be recognizing two very special guests whose bipartisan leadership and support has led to significant increases in public education funding and improvements in the lives of Ohio educators and students. Throughout their legislative careers, former State Representative Jay Edwards and State Representative Bride Rose Sweeney have been actively engaged in working with OEA members and staff and responding to the needs of their constituents. Together with his educator family members, former State Representative Jay Edwards shares a belief in the importance of education. In his 4 terms in the legislature, he made protecting and strengthening public education a priority through his service on a variety of committees, his voting record on OEA issues, and his advocacy for public education, students, educators, labor, and issues facing rural communities. As Ohio House Finance Chair from 2022 to 2024, his support was absolutely critical to updating base cost inputs in the Fair School Funding Plan and increasing the state minimum teacher salary from $30,000 to $35,000 per year. Previously, he led the way in raising the state minimum salary from $20,000 to $30,000. Jay also wrote language in the state budget bill to make school breakfast and lunch accessible to more Ohio children through state coverage of the difference of the cost between free and reduced price meals. As a member of the Ohio Controlling Board, Jay worked to provide full funding of $4.66 million for the State Board of Education to prevent an increase in educator license fees. Representative Edwards played an important role in repealing mandatory student retention under the 3rd grade reading guarantee and supported OEA positions on voucher expansion and accountability. Jay also worked to block the passage of Senate Bill 83 during the 135th General Assembly that would have eliminated collective bargaining rights for higher education faculty members, and he was one of a few House Republicans who opposed placing Issue 1 on the August 2023 ballot, which would have limited rights in our democracy for the people to rule by majority rule. When State Representative Bride Rose Sweeney was elected in November 2018, she became the first woman to represent her district at the Ohio State House and the youngest Democratic member of the 133rd Ohio General Assembly. Currently serving her 4th term in the Ohio House of Representatives, she has served on many important committees, including as ranking member of the Finance and Labor Committees. Representative Sweeney has a stellar voting record on all of OEA's key issues. Most notably, Bride was the lead Democratic co-sponsor of the bipartisan Fair School Funding Plan that became law in 2021. Her work was critical to advancing the first 2 phases of the funding formula, increasing the state minimum starting teacher salary and expanding access to healthy school meals. Representative Sweeney has also been a vocal advocate for labor unions, opposing attacks on collective bargaining, voucher expansion, and protecting voting rights by ensuring access to the polls and expanding opportunities for early voting. Bride worked closely with Jay Edwards and other members of the Ohio Controlling Board to fully fund the State Board of Education to prevent teacher licensure fees, increases in those. Representative Sweeney is committed to serving her constituents and to passing legislation that creates good-paying jobs and ensures high-quality education for every Ohioan, regardless of where they live. And I just want to add on a personal note, both have been great friends. We can see what happens when we work on a bipartisan basis with people who share our values in advancing real change. And I will also say it's a reminder that elections have consequences, and one of the sad realities of Ohio is the existence of term limits. Because Jay, we miss you right now. And the fact that we go from Jay Edwards to somebody else, I won't mention his name, as chair of the Finance Committee, and we get an absolutely atrocious school funding budget, I think shows that those elections do have consequences, and gerrymandering has consequences. So, but this is a time to celebrate two of our absolute champions. Jay, who stood up for us during his 8 years in the House, Bride, who continues to fight for us as a member of the House. And by the way, this is not a political thing, but keep an eye out. At least one of them is running for statewide office next year, and so let's pay close attention to that. So please join me in honoring our OEA Legislative Champions of Public Education, Jay Edwards and Bride Rose Sweeney.
Thank you. Unlike Scott, my speech isn't loaded in there, so I got to speak off the cuff here. First, want to give a shout out. I think I see him over here to the Southeast Ohio work group. Can I get some chants back there? Some applaud? All right. Yeah. I saw somebody got honored here before I got up here from Belpre. We finally got our levy passed down there, so we should have some new schools coming. Absolutely. So I'm a product of public schools. I graduated from Nelsonville York Schools in Athens County in Southeast Ohio. Public schools was not just a product of myself, but it was ingrained in me. I've got 8 school teachers in my family. I always joke that I used to be able to go to family get-togethers and, watch sports and eat good food. And then when I got in the legislature, I had all 8 of them in my face telling me everything I needed to do on the state level. But I was termed out at the end of last year. It was sad to be termed out because I do feel like we got a lot of stuff done. And Scott touched on a lot of the things we were able to get done. Fully funding our schools. I guess we can brag a little bit about the minimum teacher salary it hadn't been changed in 16 years, getting it from 20 to 30 and then 30 to 35. In my opinion, it's still completely disrespectful that a minimum teacher salary is $35,000. That's ridiculous for the work you guys do. But I often lay in bed now. I've been termed out since the beginning of the year, and I think about the things that we didn't get done. And, I think about free lunch, free breakfast and free lunch for all of our kids in public schools, something that needs done. I've wrote op-eds in the Columbus Dispatch on it. I hear specifically from my sister all the time, who's a 3rd grade teacher at Nelsonville, about, the state or the government is constantly worried about these ridiculous tests that we have to teach to. I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids in my class that are wondering where their next meal's going to come from. Math and science really isn't that important to these type of kids, and that's kind of things we've got to take to the legislature to make sure that they are aware of that. And then I'm also, part of the reason why I'm sad I left is I'm seeing what's going on right now. Not phasing in the fair school funding plan, taking your money and giving it to these other school choice options that aren't held to the same standard. They get to pick and choose who walks in the front door. Taking $600 million and funding the Cleveland Browns stadium, it's absolutely ridiculous. And so, my last thing I'll say, and I'll wrap up here real soon, is as you're talking to legislators, be a part of this group, be a part of your local OEA chapter, talk to your legislators. And the one thing that I always kept in mind, and you should tell every legislator or every government official you get in front of, you cannot value education if you don't value educators. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is humbling and just remarkable to receive any kind of award or recognition, but to receive a recognition from what I think is objectively the most dedicated and hardest working public servants in the state, teachers, educators, who I'm sure all of you knew the difficulties you would face in the profession that you chose, but you decided to, because I have not met a teacher or an educator that didn't do it because they had a deep passion for educating our children, because that we know that education is the one tool to give our kids a fighting chance in this world. And as Scott mentioned, all of the remarkable things that can accomplish in a legislature that may not look friendly to public education. We've done remarkable things in a bipartisan fashion. And I think I could spend the rest of my life never accomplishing another thing and being immensely proud of being the sponsor of the Fair School Funding Plan 4 years ago. Last budget cycle, through the work of Chairman Edwards and I, getting the largest increase into our public schools in recent history over the past 15 years. None of that is inevitable. None of that was predestined. We made it happen. And while both Chairman Edwards and I do have the magic pins and we have the ability to sit on the floor of the House and push the green or red button, and those accomplishments will live on our resumes for me forever. But the reality is none of that could have happened without every single person in this room. We might have had the power to hit that green button, but I know for a fact that it was through your dedication, through making sure that lawmakers who should actually know a thing or two about public education but don't are educated through you, not just educating our children, but lawmakers, the attacks on education that you fight on the local level, the state level, the federal level, giving money of your hard-earned paychecks when I know that no one is paid enough in this state for the work that you do to make sure that we have more candidates on both sides of the aisle that give a damn about our kids and care about teachers. You did that, not us. And while politicians always love to credit that work, I'm not just saying that. And I think it's more important than ever to make sure we understand the power and who is the most powerful people in this state, because lawmakers have immense power, but they are certainly not the most powerful people in Ohio. It is you, the people of Ohio, and when we truly understand that and believe that, when you demand more to be paid what your work is worth, when you demand that our children get the resources they need, that is the only way we are going to make it happen, is believing that we can. And I am still in the legislature, and just a month ago, we passed a budget that threw out the Fair School Funding Plan that had immense bipartisan support. We saw people who voted for it just 2 years ago voting to remove it for politics. And I'm telling you that this fight will never be over, and we're going to have to live the rest of our lives fighting for public education, but it can change, and I just truly hope you understand the power that you have and to never give up that fight, because it can happen. We can fund our schools. We eventually can get there, only if we don't give up, and I'm truly grateful for the partnership of what we've been able to accomplish and what we're still going to accomplish in the future. So thank you.
So thank you both. Before you step away, I'm going to ask Jeff to join me, and we have a token of our appreciation to present to Jay and to Bride, our legislative champion, the Public Education Award for 2025. Don't encourage him.